Well, hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the Huddle, the Review.com's weekly high school sports show. I'm Rob Toder, joined as always by Mike Brown. It's hard to believe it's week 10 of the high school football season. It's rivalry week in the Alliance area. And Mike, let's start with the Marlington Dukes because they've got something special that they can achieve against the Alliance Aviators on Friday night. Dukes going for a 10-0 season. We know they're going to host a playoff game. But that 10-0 mark and an undisputed NBC championship on the line.
Yeah, that's something real special for Bo Balderson and company, and the Dukes would be a favorite Friday night. Although I tell you what, Rob, I think you better take your lunch pail to that game because that game's going to be high scoring, I think. Because both teams have explosive offensive players, so I see a lot of scoring in that game. I do think Marlington has a better defense going in. We'll see if that's the difference in the game. But it's got to be special for Marlington. Going for a 10-0, it doesn't just happen every day. And being an outright NBC champion if they can win that game on Friday night.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I'm really impressed. I think Bo Balderson and Seth Whiting are two of the finest young coaches in Stark County.
Absolutely. And yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Rob, because they're very innovative on offense. And I think they've obviously done a good job on their defense. Alliance's defense, even though it's still a work in progress there, has gotten better through the season. And both those teams' offenses are they can score it anywhere, at any time on the field.
Also Friday night, a couple of other NBC games, Carrollton against Minerva, that long-standing rivalry, and Louisville and Canton South are going to play as well. Louisville still has an outside shot at a playoff spot. And then Saturday night, the return, kind of back to the future, the Salem West Branch game.
Right.
That big rivalry is going to be on television out of the Youngstown area. And they're going to play on a special Saturday night game. Neither team's going to the playoffs, but that really doesn't matter in this match.
Right, that brings back a lot of memories for me. I played in 3 of those games back when they played on Saturday night. And even when West Branch built its own stadium in '71 because they played at Riley Stadium in Salem before that and got used to the Saturday night home games. They continued that tradition on Saturday night for a long time and then went to Friday night. So to play this game on Saturday night brings back special memories for me. But that game's tremendous, Rob. It doesn't matter if these teams are 10-0 or 0-10. If you can salvage a win in that game, it means everything going into an off season.
What do you think that's going to come down to? Because in all these games, really, the weather's not going to be very good,
right?
And it's going to be cold. Turnover's always a thing, but emotion should be a problem.
Really, and you know what? I looked at the computer models on that game, and both of them have West Branch favored by 1 point. That tells you how close. That tells you that game could go either way. And that might be a game like we've talked about with other games this season, Rob. May come down to an extra possession. Somebody has a turnover, the other team gets an extra possession, could make the difference. But I think that's going to be a really close game. I could see that game probably in the 20s, maybe even the 30s this year. So it should be exciting for the fans. Should be great for the area too, because we have 2 Saturday night games this week and one in the area. St. Tom's playing at Warren Kennedy Saturday night too. But with the game, the West Branch Salem game at West Branch, I think there's going to be a lot of area people looking for something to do to get their football fix Saturday night, and they're going to be in Beloit to watch that game.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk about that St. Tom JFK game, Mike, because it's 2 teams that are 8-1.
Right.
They're both going to the playoffs, and I think it's a good gauge for both of them to see just where they stand because they're going to be facing each other a quality opponent.
Right, and I was looking at their comparative scores and the teams they had played this past week, Rob, and I think St. Thomas played a much tougher regular season schedule against teams with winning records, where when I looked at JFK, they've only played 1 team with a winning record this year. That was going into last weekend. And then they got dumped last weekend. So JFK has a great program. St. Tom has a great program. I'm sure that will be a very competitive, close game. But I feel pretty good about the Knights. Even though that game's on the road, I feel pretty good about their chances.
Let's also talk about Western Reserve. They've got an outside shot at the playoffs, and they're going to take on the Sebring Trojans in their rivalry game.
Right. That's Western Reserve is going to have to win and get some help. It's going to be real close whether they make it this year in the playoffs. I do think Louisville is going to make it in the playoffs in D3, Rob. And by the way, for area fans, Marlington and Marlington's going to make the playoffs. Should Louisville make the playoffs, both those would be in D3. Those games are on Saturday nights this year. So Marlington-Louisville games will be on Saturday nights. And then St. Tom, and they're going to make the playoffs. They're already guaranteed to make the playoffs. Their games are going to be on Friday nights. So area fans might want to be reminded of that fact.
And that's cool too. So you can take in the Knights on
Yeah,
Friday night. You can take in the
absolutely.
Dukes and the Leopards on Saturday night. As long
got
as they
it.
exist.
Yep.
Okay, so make sure you check out the review.com and the Alliance Review. We'll have previews on all those games and much more. We'll have coverage in Saturday's paper, and we'll have up to date online where teams stand in the playoffs. And when those playoff games are announced on Sunday, make sure you check out the review.com and our Twitter feeds, and we'll have those updated for you as well. So until next week, for Mike, this is Rob. We'll talk to you then.